Episode 32 of Beyond the Blast Doors. Thanks for checking us out. David Amilati, one of your hosts, along with Jesse Buck. We are missing David Gilbert. He is on some Boy Scout trip, something with work.
Top secret mission.
Top secret mission.
Yeah.
I like that. That sounds a lot more interesting. Maybe he's traveling with some Mandalorians.
He could be.
I did that for you. We have a full episode for you, but it's going to be a short episode. Obviously, we're down David, and just not a whole lot going on this week, but we've dug out some cool stories that we'll touch upon. Yeah. Obviously, Last Jedi deleted scenes came out. We got 2 great comics with Thrawn and Darth Vader number 13. And then also we have a really fun Stashed or Blasted topic. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. But first, I do want to bring up, did you see that the Hasbro HasLabs, that Jabba's sailing barge, it's now hit I think 50% of its goal?
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, I see it as being like, I mean, if you can afford it, it'd be a nice shelf piece to have.
Isn't it like $500, $600?
Yeah, I think they were like, oh, drop $500 on here, and you end up with possibly getting this, and it doesn't cover the actual cost, if I remember correctly.
Right. So you're buying into it. So it's kind of a cool concept, except that it's going to cost you a ton of money to be involved with. But you pay this upfront fee to fund its development, and then you're going to have to buy the actual piece. So it's like quite a investment that you're going to have to make. I can't deny that it looks cool. We're showing you some photos right now on the screen. I can't deny that this looks like incredible. Just like you said, it'd be
nice
a great showpiece.
Yeah.
But the fun, I don't know, the playability, not much there. And when you get beyond the age of like 13, 14, I don't know how much playability factors into your investment. I collect the action figures still, but I like them for display. I don't have crazy adventures with them like I used to when I was a kid.
Yeah, and you're not, breaking bank, to pick up, a figure either. I mean, this is something where, again, they're wanting basically a deposit that you don't get back, and then on top of that, you got to turn around and buy, the set. It looks great. I kind of want it, but I'm not going to spend the money on it.
I think we can find better things to spend our money on.
Exactly.
Star Wars related.
Yes.
All right. Well, I just want to make sure that we provided that update because 2 episodes we brought that up. Jesse had heard about it through the grapevine, and so when I saw that update, that I wanted to make sure that we followed up with that with you. So there's that story. Let's dive into real talk now, and obviously the story right now is the fact that Last Jedi drops digital and home release. We now have access to all these deleted scenes, and there's a few that stood out to us the most. So I feel like, we've already seen the Phasma scene. So, Jesse, I'll start with you. Give me one deleted scene that you watched and tell me what you thought about it.
Well, I mean, obviously I watched all of them a couple times.
That goes without saying.
Yeah, without saying. For me, the most important one that I felt that should have stayed in the movie was Luke grieving. This sequence, I mean, you kind of get a moment to where Carrie Fisher, they're in hyperspace. This is at the very beginning of the movie, by the way. And she's just sitting at a table, and, she's just kind of looking sad. And the way this scene was shot was basically, I feel like they could feel each other through the Force, the sadness. To me, yeah, that was like, why'd you take that out? That was awesome.
Yeah, I don't think, having seen it, it was only like 15 seconds. It wasn't that much time that it would have added to the movie, and I feel like anything that would have given us more Luke, especially a grieving Luke, to see an empathetic, a sympathetic, a grieving Luke would be very valuable to a lot of viewers, because I think a lot of fans were upset that they didn't get to see that more human side of Luke. We just got this curmudgeon. So I think around the fandom, I think that's probably going to be the scene that a lot of folks are going to be asking for. Why would you give us 20 minutes of Canto Bight? You want to give us 15 seconds of Luke grieving.
Oh, God.
Well, now that kind of transitions to another deleted scene, right? Because
yes,
Canto Bight was apparently 8 minutes longer.
Canto Bight was going to be 70% of the movie. With this,
it was already its own movie.
Yeah, so it's another deleted scene we got. We basically got an extended chase scene from Canto Bight security forces with Rose and Finn on the what's the alien horses? I forget.
Fathiers,
thank you. It was just like it was like probably the longest deleted scene sequence I've ever seen on any movie, and I was actually kind of thankful that they cut this. Just way too much. Too much focus. Now, there was a little brief moment where we get more of the little chuckling little alien that Mark Hamill voiced, the guy putting the coins into BB-8. I could have done with more of that.
See, that didn't do anything for me either.
But the whole chase sequence, no, it gets a thumbs down for me, big time.
Fair enough. That there was that scene. We also had the alternate opening of the movie, which I think it started on Finn. It focused on Finn, and he wakes up. It's
yeah, that would have been kind of an interesting take.
I like the opening that we got better.
Yeah,
I definitely like starting in space, tilting down to the story in progress. But I'm also old school OT fan in that way. I'm stuck in my way there. Any other scenes that we're thinking about? Oh my gosh. Because I don't want to go through all, because there's like a lot of deleted scenes. I mean, that is the nice thing about this release, is the fact that you're getting a lot of content. The third lesson we get with Luke and Rey on Oct 2. I actually
did kind of excuse me, a little throat tickle there, but I did enjoy the
mating ritual.
Is that what it was? Because I mean, Luke is kind of like, well, the other natives are coming to raid and plunder the.
So basically, it turns out is Luke lies to Rey about what's going to happen at the village. Says the pirates are going to pillage.
What would a Jedi do?
The Guardians. But really, what it is once a month the Guardians get together and they mate and they celebrate and
they party hard. They look like they were having a good time.
I don't know. I just really the Guardians didn't really do much for me, but I kind of thought it was odd that we never really got the third lesson. I guess Rey kind of learns the third lesson throughout the movie in a couple different ways. But I think any opportunity to give you more Luke, more Rey on Oct 2, I think that would have been very valuable for the viewer benefit.
I thought it was a cool scene. Maybe they could have shortened it up a little bit. Because it actually ends with Rey actually being really upset because Luke kind of did this almost as kind of a joke, kind of a prank. And, it ends with her kind of storming off and everything. And, I always heard about, you and everything, and you're just like the biggest letdown ever kind of thing.
I think it's interesting, too, because it's going back to that whole idea that the Force isn't a weapon. Like, the Force surrounds you and you're able to tap into it, but it's not a weapon to wield. And so I think it was interesting. I think with a lot of the deleted scenes that you will watch, you're going to have the thought of, I see what they were going for, but the way that it's executed here, I think it's for the best that it's not in the movie.
I think it could have been done a little bit different, but I would have liked to seen something similar in there.
And then Rian Johnson, didn't he say that the movie originally, the original cut was 4 hours, and we got the best cut, which is like about 2.5? So I buy that. I buy that. You don't need this extended thing. I agree. I think for what I've seen with these deleted scenes, aside from the Luke grieving thing, the best version of this movie is what we got in theaters. I go back and forth on the Phasma scene because last week on the episode, we talked about how we liked it. I've wavered on that, and the more I watch it and the more I think about it.
I watched it 3 times. I watched that particular one 3 times because, we had talked about it, and there are elements that I enjoyed about it, and then there were parts of it was just like it did actually end up seem a little cheesy that, she's got these First Order stormtroopers kind of all around her, and she's able to take all of them out. And just the movements, it just didn't do anything for me.
We talked about it last week. I don't want to dive too much into it, but I stand by what Rian Johnson said. I mean, as far as like the best cut of this film, no matter what you think of the film, you got the best cut in theater. So there's more scenes. Go check those out if you haven't already gotten the digital release or the home release. Be sure you let us know your favorite or maybe least favorite deleted scene down in the comments below. Would love to get your feedback in the comment section down below. Let's go on to the next topic, which is Rian Johnson, Mark Hamill appearing at South by Southwest recently, and they talk about The Last Jedi. Let's start with Rian Johnson comments. He talked about a variety of things. Jesse, what stands out?
I watched probably I'd say 70% of that panel. Honestly, he didn't really discuss anything new like that I could tell. It was like everything that's been said prior in other interviews, other Comic-Cons and panels. I did think it was kind of cool that Mark Hamill was able to make this this convention and everything. It's always good to see Mark interacting with fans and everything. At the same time, though, I still wonder what the actual relationship is like. Because we know Mark's been has expressed some bitterness about the direction.
He even acknowledged that while he was speaking. He was saying how he regrets sharing that, which I don't think he should regret. I think
he was right to have concerns.
Yeah, and I don't buy that I don't buy that he fully likes the movie. I still think that deep down, because he even is quoted. He even says, he's part of the old school George Lucas Star Wars story, and then he needed Rian Johnson to kind of bring him to this new era. And to me, as a fan, I'm just saying I'm one of those fans who I don't buy that. The story should have been differently.
I'm just kind of curious what the actual friendship. What's kind of the status there? Are they?
I think
just putting on a front, or
there might be some genuine. I think there's genuine respect between the two, but they're not like going to have lunch every afternoon together.
Still waiting for Mark Hamill to visit us for Taco Bell.
No,
but, I don't
maybe
think
it might happen. That's been a running gag for 32 episodes. And
yeah,
we haven't gotten anywhere with it.
It's going to happen on 101.
Anything else to help? Anything else? I mean, you really didn't feel like Rian Johnson said anything that was of intrigue?
Honestly, no, not for me. Just nothing really came at a surprise. It's kind of what I expected.
At this point, I guess we kind of have heard. I mean, I think people keep asking the same questions because they want a different explanation of maybe why X, Y, and Z happened, which I think is fair. I mean, you heard me just 30 seconds ago still ranting about how Luke Skywalker was mishandled in that movie. The story should have been told differently. But I think the main point of this story would be that it is nice to see them continuing to have interaction.
Yes. Yeah.
All these people going out there that, attacking Rian for saying, oh, you have to defend the movie, must not be that great. I at this point, I just really don't care. I'm really switching my attention to Solo. I want that movie to come out. I want that movie to be successful in theaters. And I want there to be a lot more. I want the positive vibe of the Star Wars fandom to return, because right now it is very tense, and you're almost scared to bring up Star Wars with people.
Yeah, that's one of those things. Like, I don't want people to watch this and think that like I'm anti The Last Jedi, because there's actually a lot about that movie that I actually really did enjoy.
I'm pretty anti, but that's the cool thing about our show, I think, though, is because we
got a pretty good diversity.
Yeah, there's three perspectives. Like, really loves it, you love and hate it, and I'm like, I'll go back and watch the Clone Wars.
Like, I'm treating it almost like the prequels. There are things I love about the prequels, and there's things I hate about the prequels, which kind of ties into a Fan Comlink question here in a little bit.
Way to foreshadow, Jesse. Well done. But before we do that, we're going to go to something I teased myself. Solo, a Star Wars story, has new posters because apparently the agency that Lucasfilm used to do the original Solo posters, we talked about this last episode too, was the fact that this agency basically stole the theme from a French composer's jazz album.
Oh,
do you remember this? So yeah, there's this jazz musician. He's French, and the concept, the album artwork is identical, even in shade of color, to what they used for the Solo posters. So we now have new.
I have a feeling somebody lost their job over this
one.
Oh,
definitely lost their job, and maybe I don't know if there's a lawsuit. Just about my mic. Whoops. I don't think there's gonna be a lawsuit, but definitely somebody lost their job.
Somebody definitely lost the job.
Got these new posters, and they look 10 times better. I wish they would have just come out and done these.
That's because they hired somebody to replace this individual who did the job right.
These posters I think are really slick, and they're posters. I mean, that's really all you can say.
Yeah.
But I think it really captures the adventure vibe that I want to be getting from this movie. I don't know if I've really gotten that from the teaser trailer for Solo. I think I've got this it kind of feels like an epic. It almost feels like there's too much storytelling to be able to be told in 2.5 hours.
Honestly, I think we're not going to get another trailer at any point, because...
Which blows my mind, because, we're recording this on the same day that we got the full-length Infinity War trailer.
Yeah.
And that follows a teaser trailer and a teaser.
I think for this, because it's kind of almost a singular story kind of thing, I think if they were to do another trailer, it would maybe give away too much of possibly of the storyline and the plot.
Okay.
So in order to save face and kind of encourage people to actually go see it, I think we got what we're going to see. And I am actually kind of excited. I want to see the time frame that this movie's slated to be in. Is kind of an interesting period in the galactic history. So. Be good to see.
Hey, fingers crossed. I think it's going to kick ass. And if you think the Solo movie is going to be great, or you like or dislike the posters that we just showed you on your screen, or we just got done talking about, let us know down in the comments below, because we just want to have a Star Wars conversation with you. Now, before we go on to the next segment of the show, I want to remind you, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, and of course here on YouTube. Always be on the lookout, too, for BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. That's the first place you should go on Mondays to find our new episode. So you wake up Monday morning, you log on to BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. You'll see the new episode there. Go ahead and watch that. And if you want to go as far as to share that on your social media, that'd be awesome, because we're just trying to grow the fan base. Pages, Pixels, and Pieces. That's the next segment of the show.
Yes.
And we're going to dive into this because I think this is a really cool find. Recently, some concept art surfaced for Battlefront 4. This was the LucasArts run that LucasArts did the original Battlefront, Battlefront 2, and I stand by. I think both of those games, especially for the time, were great.
Yes, without a doubt. I played those games quite a bit.
Three got canceled, and obviously that's when talks then surfaced that maybe EA was going to have a chance at doing Star Wars gaming, and now we're here in 2018 in microtransactions. But anyways, we got some really cool concept art. And we got like Dark Side Luke and a Dark Side Obi-Wan and a Jedi version of Ventress and Dooku and Dark Side Mace Windu. What's your thoughts on these?
They're interesting. Like, it's called concept art, and it's interesting to see and everything, and it's well done and everything. But I'm actually kind of glad that these never came to pass, because those aren't things that I would have wanted to actually potentially be story. Because some of the LucasArts games were considered canon at the time. So I'm actually kind of glad that this didn't happen, because that would have been canon for possibly a little bit or forever.
I would have been fine with like different kind of skins that you could play as. Like, I would play as like a Dark Side Obi-Wan. But you look at all the different renderings for like Dark Side Luke. I really always wanted to see Luke experiment with the dark side of the Force in an effort to try and create the solution to finding ultimate balance. Like, I like the idea of Luke getting consumed by the Sith alchemy and all that, and then having to get redeemed, whether that's through how in EU, if it's done through his nephew and niece, or some other Force, however that would be done. But I really like the renderings. There's one of like Luke in basically the Anakin garb, and I'm not really into that. But there's a couple of Sith-looking Lukes, and that's really tempting. And it kind of makes me think, what if? Because you're right. Those games were considered canon, especially the Battlefront 2 campaign about Vader's Fist and the 501st. Yeah. So it is interesting. It's that what if, what could have been with Battlefront 3 and 4. Obviously, we get the EA Battlefront 1 in 2015, Battlefront 2 in 2017. Still great games all around. Concept art, though, I think some of this concept art could become desktop backgrounds in the very near future for my PC.
I mean, again, very interesting to see what they were working with. It would have been interesting to find out what kind of story arc, if any, or it's kind of like for the Force Unleashed games, they had what was considered the actual story, and then they kind of had an alternate ending.
Yes,
which wasn't the main story was considered canonical, while the alternate one was not. So I mean, if they were toying around with something like that, that would have been fine. But that small little fear what I heard about this was like, no, like.
It's just cool to speculate over. Really cool art, and glad that it was able to surface. And if you have any thoughts about that concept art, let us know down in the comments below about the game. Were you hopeful for a 3 and a Battlefront 4 from LucasArts, or are you happier with what you're getting now with EA? I'll be curious to find out about that.
A quick note, they actually just released, I believe earlier the day or sometime maybe yesterday, they are bringing the loot boxes kind of back. You're not no, you're not going to pay for them. You can't buy them with real money. And apparently, they're strictly cosmetic, and they're revamping the progression system apparently as well. So, if you're into Battlefront 2, the newer Battlefront 2, you should probably reinstall that if you still, if you need to.
Why would you want to install it, Jesse?
I don't know. Some people were really displeased with it.
Peeved.
A little peeved.
That's
a good word for it. So I encourage you to reinstall it because there's some good changes coming to the game.
Let's talk about comic books because I love my comics, and I love that I've gotten Jesse in the comics kind of through the show.
A comic series.
A comic series. Let's start with Darth Vader. Number 13 drops, and it is really exceptional. You and I were talking right before the show about how issue number 11 kind of put a sour taste in my. It was the first time that I felt like Charles Soule and Giuseppe just didn't hit it on all cylinders. 12 was a fantastic rebound. My goodness.
Yeah.
Did 13 really deliver? Basically, you have Vader on assignment from Palpatine to hunt down a potential Jedi involved with negotiations happening between the Empire and Mon Cala, the home planet of the Mon Calamari. And then you also have this secondary story where you have Tarkin that's involved with those negotiations. And it's interesting to see that Tarkin's already kind of in orbit of Mon Cala while they have this Imperial representative down on planet side, and he thinks he's in full control. And then Vader just randomly shows up, and I bring this up not to spoil anything, but I bring this up because it's interesting because my understanding was that Tarkin, out of anybody in the Imperial Navy, would be privy to any action. That would directly impact his ability to do his mission. So, I feel like if Vader was going to be sent to Mon Cala as well, the Emperor would notify him. Because I really do feel like even though the Emperor did view himself above everyone, I feel at times he had more respect for Tarkin as a military strategist than Darth Vader, who's supposed to be, the might and fury, so to say, of the Emperor. So, I thought that was really interesting. Jesse, how did you like the way that Vader was approached? I feel like you had to really enjoy that opening, that kind of meditation of Vader in his whatever you call that force shell that he likes to meditate in.
Yeah, it's like a force meditation chamber.
Yeah, the chamber. You see it in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, you see it in Empire. It allows Vader to basically take his helmet off. A lot of rumors and a little bit out there. That's a whole different podcast, but
or different episode. But tell me, what do you think about the meditation, that insight into that?
Kind of interesting to see what Vader's thinking about. I mean, he's kind of, sorry, spoilers, but he's really dwelling on his fight with Obi-Wan. And I think I'll leave it at that because it's a little bit different than how we saw it.
I think we can go as far as saying I think what's going on is he's reflecting on that battle on Mustafar, but now he's seeing it with a revenge. And so it's modified. It's modified.
Yeah, and altered.
But I like the fact that Charles Soule keeps taking us inside the mind of Vader, which is really nice because it's a humanizing element of Vader, and you continue to understand that this is still a man that is suffering, that is dealing with regret and some remorse, and still doesn't feel 100% confident in the path that he's chosen.
Yeah.
And then he's also realizing he's gone too far. And I really enjoyed this. There were a few moments in the comic that I kind of had a double take at the art. Very rarely am I finding myself double taking at Giuseppe Kimicoli's art, but there were a couple trooper helmets that I thought were kind of sloppy. They didn't look right. I didn't know if they were. I was like, is that intentionally? Is that supposed to be a cross breed of a trooper? Is it a hybrid, or is that just kind of sloppy?
The angle or lighting or shadow or something.
But no, I thought it was really cool, and basically there's this negotiations happening with Mon Cala, and there's some question about whether they should succeed or not. And Lee Char, who from the Clone Wars animated series, he's kind of the ruler of Mon Cala right now. You get appearances from Akbar in this issue.
Yeah, a younger Akbar.
You get Raddus.
Yeah,
Admiral Raddus of the Rebel Alliance.
Stephen Stanton.
So yeah, Stephen Stanton obviously does that way better than I do, but I'm a fan. I'm an admirer. It was really cool to see those familiar faces, especially since in Star Wars 44 and 45, we see Leia several years later. I mean, post A New Hope, on Mon Cala as well right now, and they're negotiating with Calamari there. So kind of interesting to see how the two different series, even though they're happening decades apart, there's events are kind of correlating, so that's kind of cool. Anything that we haven't touched on this Darth Vader comic that we want to hit on?
The only thing it seemed a little bit odd because I mean we see a younger Tarkin in the Clone Wars animated series, and he's still he's a jerk. He's this kind of pompous military know-it-all kind of thing.
He's always been that way.
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't get that vibe from him in this comic. He seemed very proper, very like not thoughtful as in like Carrie, but like because they're in the middle of negotiations and everything is kind of actually going smoothly. It's a peaceful negotiation kind of thing, and then like as you put it, Vader shows up, and we get a whole different thing going on, and we kind of see where the story, you start seeing that familiar plot twist in there. But at the end of this comic, we're kind of teased with
there's a Jedi,
potentially a Jedi.
We don't know who, but there's a Jedi in a cloak.
I tried to look it up. I tried to see if who was maybe stationed there during the Clone Wars. I didn't get anywhere.
A lot of internet buzz right now wants it to be Voss.
Really?
They want that to happen really bad because I mean it's a Jedi that really. Quinlan Voss was a background character in The Phantom Menace, and then they ended up making him a character in the Clone Wars, and then he became a fan favorite. There's a canon novel with him and Ventress running around. It would be interesting. I just don't know who else. That would be. Obviously, a couple issues back, we did have a list of surviving Jedi, I believe, or we had Force-sensitive beings, but then. Many issues prior, we did have a list of known Jedi to be alive because that list included Ahsoka. So I had to get that straight. I didn't want to be misinformative. So I guess you can speculate a lot about who that Jedi could be, but we're probably going to find out in the next issue. Which, by the way, the cover for issue 14, I should say, is incredible. Vader coming out of the water with the red in his eyes. Looks sick.
Now, this current issue, though, that we're talking about, there was a slight little mishap, though. A little typo.
Oh, yeah, there's like some questions about, I don't think it's a big deal. There's some concerns or questions about if this comic is really 3 years, if it's really 3 years later, because like in the forward, they kind of do like an opening crawl, and they're like 3 years later, and then Palpatine refers to it's been 3 years since I've taken over. So I guess I'm probably just going to have to reach out to Matt Martin on Twitter and see if he answers me, because I was pretty sure I read a tweet where he was like, yeah, that timeline isn't right.
Yeah, apparently there's a little bit of debate concerning the timetable for this issue.
Yeah, like I just said,
the actual
like,
canon.
In the canon, it says maybe 3. It's Matt Martin said it's not. I don't think it's the end of the world. It's a comic. Read the damn comic. But
still a great comic.
Trying to have a follow-up for you next week. Another great comic that I want you to know about. Thrawn number 2 came out. Big fan of Thrawn number 1. Did you read?
No, because
you're waiting for the novel.
Yeah, I'm holding off until I've gotten through the novel. So
I won't. Okay, so I will be.
I'm going to pull a David Gilbert.
Yeah, I want you to go out and I want you to buy this comic. What's so great about the Thrawn comic is the fact that it's not your 21, 22 pages. You're getting double the comic. You're getting incredible art. You're getting such a great, a well-written story adaptation from the novel. You are getting such a great understanding of Timothy Zahn's appreciation and love for this character of Thrawn and Vanto and all these characters that kind of surround. It's just really well executed. Darth Vader, Charles Soule, still my favorite Star Wars comic to date. But this Thrawn miniseries is something that you need to be a part of if you are not already. There is a great cover that has already come out for number 3, where it's Governor Price and Thrawn looking at each other. And, of course, if you watch Star Wars Rebels, you know that there's a relationship there between Governor Price and Thrawn.
Some sort of relationship. Of course, if you watch Rebels, you know that it doesn't really end well for the two, but...
Well, no, but there's, there's a relationship.
Yeah,
there's
something there.
So definitely check that out. And then just a heads up, because I want to make sure that you know what's going on the rest of the month. We also got Poe Dameron 25. I put out a poll a while ago on Twitter. By the way, if you're not following us on Twitter, you totally should, because I'll do polls like once in a while, like what are the comics that you're reading We had like 200 people vote in this last comic book one, and like less than like 10% were reading Poe Dameron. So we don't touch on it a lot. If you do want us to talk about Poe Dameron more often, let us know. It's really the only content we're getting right now that's in between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. So, I guess I should be more interested in diving into that. Me personally, just because we all know that I have my issues with the sequel trilogy, I don't get into it that much. But I think if you're really interested in the development of the Resistance and the First Order and its activity with Phasma, you will get your thirst quenched.
Help me, Filoni.
Do you want to say something?
Yes.
Oh.
Dave Filoni's our only hope.
You were like to whispering over there. Okay, so what else is coming out? I guess Dr. Aphra is really the last thing to drop. No, whoa. I misspoke. I couldn't have read Poe Dameron 25 because it comes out next week with Star Wars 45.
Well, unless you got up to 88 miles per hour, David.
Oh, yeah, Jump to the Future.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Dr. Aphra closes us out on March 28th. So that's your comic fix for the week. And I really enjoy having comic talk with you. I know that you're not the biggest comic book fan, but
I definitely, yeah. I mean, I definitely want to read THRAWN after I've read THRAWN.
Yeah.
It's so weird saying it that way, but
it's such a good read. Really excited for the second THRAWN novel that's coming out this year in May, I believe, because that's going to be a Vader-THRAWN team-up, so that should be pretty good. Let's go ahead and go to Stash It or Blast It. Stash It or Blast It is the third segment of our show sometimes. It's usually the third segment of the show.
Usually.
It's usually always number 3. But we got a fun topic that we're talking about
kind of a revisit, if I think.
A little bit here. So you might remember a few weeks ago we talked about the credibility or the lack thereof of the Return of the Jedi plan to rescue Han from Jabba.
Yeah.
Star Wars author Chuck Wendig explains Han Solo's rescue on his own on social media, and Chuck Wendig should be a familiar name to you. If it isn't, let me help you out. He's the guy who wrote 3 of the books on my bookshelf here, the Aftermath trilogy, which I know that Aftermath didn't hit for most.
I really enjoyed it, though.
I really liked Aftermath. Yeah. I really like Life Debt and Empire's End a lot more.
Mr. Bones is amazing.
It's a character that grew on me. Just something about a Trade Federation droid becoming a clown droid. I don't know. It felt very George Lucas inspired. And once I thought about it that way, I was into it. I'm like, George would do this.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like a killer.
Oh, assassin.
It's like a picture your standard Clone Wars droid and how measly and not formidable they were, and then somebody modifies one and it actually becomes kind of a comical but an actual dangerous droid.
Yeah.
And that's where I actually really enjoyed it.
So let's get on to the topic at hand, which is that Chuck Wendig basically comes out and is like, guys, stop complaining about this plan that they had devised to get Han. He's basically explaining how it's actually quite genius, and it's something we didn't articulate the same way, but we made the same point, which is the plan is a series of plans, and it's a series of fail-safes. So if one plan doesn't go well, the next is there. I guess, Jesse, first off, stash it or blast it, and why?
I'm going to stash it because Chuck absolutely nails it on the head here. It's a very comical read, by the way. I think we'll probably have a link to this down
in the description below.
Down in the description below, because it really is funny how Chuck goes about explaining this. But yeah, it's like a plan series. So if Plan A doesn't work, we've got Plan B, and if Plan B doesn't work, we've got Plan C. And he really does kind of walk you through that first like 20 minutes of Return of the Jedi, and explains the different elements of why there was a plan, but the plan was to have multiple plans. I really
enjoyed how he was like, Lando gets in there with ease right off the bat. He's there to scout it out, and don't question how he's able to pull it off, because it's not like Jabba hires the best clientele to be his guards or his bounty hunters.
It's not like Jabba's doing like background checks and drug test or anything. So
right, and I do like how it's noted like the plan for Leia to bring in Chewie, that really was hopefully to close it out.
Yeah.
And it just didn't go well. And I think a great question that really wasn't asked much is, to me, it's like, how did Jabba know to hide everybody over in that alcove to bust Leia? Like, that's the greater question out of all of this. Like, the plan to me, I'm like, yeah, they had a series of fail-safes, and ultimately it ended up working out for the best. But, like, how did Jabba get tipped off?
Yeah, I mean, even Chuck, in his little article, he's like, this is the only little loop here that, maybe an oversight, but yeah, how did Jabba know to kind of set up this little counter trap for Leia and everything? So maybe something tipped him off.
He calls the droids utility players.
Yeah.
He's like, he knew Jabba wasn't going to buy the threat message, the hologram. It's like Luke was going to have to come in there. Luke was going to have to come in and clean shop.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really good. I'm going to stash it as well because I think it's great. You can't blast someone's opinion on these things. I think you have to respect everyone's creativity. You don't have to like it, but I'm going to stash it. I think that was great. I love when Chuck Wendig is probably one of the most interactive writers on Twitter as far as like Star Wars writers go. So like reach out to him because he'll always tweet you back, and be respectful because he writes damn good Star Wars stories, and I want him to keep loving the fandom. Let's jump into Fan Comlink this week because we have a really fun question.
We do, actually, yeah.
Ireland tweets with a 3 in it. He's a friend of the show. He actually is.
Okay, I thought you were actually talking about the actual country, Ireland. I was a little concerned that One Nation got together and asked us a question.
I would love if the country would tweet at us. I feel like we've made it that point. The tweet that we have is a really funny one. He asks us, what specifically makes Jar Jar the character that divides the community? And when he talks about the Star Wars, he's talking about the Star Wars community, obviously. And just on the surface, I would, well, you know what, Jesse, do you have your points?
I actually do. I think a lot of what divides, there is purpose to Jar Jar, gasp, okay? But the thing is I think what bothers most fans is that the overall character was meant to kind of be some kind of a comic relief, which didn't, the jokes, his jokes really weren't funny, his overall nature.
It was George playing to the kids in the crowd, and
actually, some people actually found that his mannerisms actually offensive on some levels. So I mean, you can get into that whole different. Yeah,
I wasn't even aware of that.
That's a whole another episode.
But we will never do an episode on Jar Jar's mannerisms. I want to be very clear about that.
But I do think Jar Jar did serve. Obviously he did serve some sort of role.
I think Jar Jar is a great...
And Palpatine played it to a T.
Jar Jar is a great character in the sense that you somehow needed to link up... I mean, for a plot device, you obviously needed to get Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan from here to there. I think it was like another set of Ewoks. Like it's like this other species that's kind of subservient on the planet. But they also had this like technological understanding that was beyond a lot of cultures too. I think here's the thing that I think that works about Jar Jar.
I like Gungans. I just didn't like Jar Jar.
Well, see, here's where I disagree with you. I don't like the Gungans in general because I feel like they didn't all need to be clowns. They all talked like Adisa. And that, to me, it sounded like someone making fun of Italians. I don't know. It was a really crappy voice. I think if you fix the Gungan's voice and you fix the droids, I think it's a lot more convincing. And I think fans like it more. But Jar Jar always has the right intention, but he's just never given the best dialogue to win you over as a viewer. And so I think that if there would have been maybe a co-writer on the prequels, if there would have been someone to have more of a check and balance system for George Lucas, I think you like Jar Jar more. But Jar Jar is really an idiot that sometimes comes across as borderline racist, that never has anything intelligent to add. Like when you're watching Attack of the Clones and you're seeing Obi-Wan and Anakin in the elevator, and then you're like, oh, man, okay, we're going to get this right. This is going to be so great. Okay. And then the doors open, and there's Jar Jar, and, oh, Annie, so good to see you. It's like, son of a bitch. Like, we were so close. But we've literally ruined this movie in under 5 minutes.
I don't know if it ruined the movie.
No, it really made me mad. And then it's like, you get to be really mad about Jar Jar because he became the puppet of Palpatine. He's the one that hands over all executive power.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I kind of feel like if Palpatine had like a like a wall with like photographs of like senators that to choose from to kind of, okay, I need one of these guys to vote me emergency powers. I feel like there's like a big red circle like around Jar Jar, and like Palpatine's going, there's my idiot.
I think I figured it out. What divides the community about Jar Jar is that every element of Jar Jar is unnecessary. I used to think that he was necessary to get Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon off the planet, but he's really not. He's a means of getting them away from the Trade Federation into Naboo. And I think the real solution to all this is starting Phantom Menace on the invasion of Naboo, and not like the first 15, 20 minutes that we get. Like, we don't need the pre-invasion stuff. We should just gone right into battle.
Yeah.
But really, if you think about it, there's not one thing that Jar Jar does that really benefits your experience or benefits or enhances the story.
There's only one thing that I feel like he actually does well, and that's actually in the Aftermath books, and he's basically a homeless clown, but he takes care of orphan children. And that's it. I mean, it's kind of a good role,
A good role? I think
it's like a good charitable thing.
It's fan service. People want to know what happened to Jar Jar, and it's like you can't kill him off aggressively.
But
so you're gonna make him a street
Wendick
clown.
did was basically go, people, the higher ups, the important people in the government. A lot of people like, hey, you're the one that voted Palpatine emergency powers. You caused this whole war.
Yeah.
So he did take a lot of flack for that. But I mean, his later life of just basically being this homeless clown who's taking care of orphaned children, I do think is a good thing. I think if you really look at it, he's an older at this point, maybe not as crazy. He's been through some crap. He's kind of a darker version of Jar Jar, and I actually kind of enjoyed Chuck Wendig's, view on this character. I kind of wish we would have maybe gotten that sooner, maybe, in the movies and in the Clone Wars,
I don't think it fits. It doesn't fit at all. It doesn't fit at all, because if you think about it, in the first movie he's just Jar Jar, and the second one he's getting experiences of being a political leader and a representative, and the third one he's the ploy of the Emperor. It makes no sense to get that in those three movies. He was the entire time we're watching that, the galaxy hasn't turned on Jar Jar yet.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I would have rather seen that kind of character from the beginning. I mean, like when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan first run into him, he's already been banished. He's technically, I guess, in some ways, already homeless in Phantom Menace to some degree. He's out in the middle of swamps. What was he doing?
He's just your local schmuck.
So the point is it's just like, I feel like maybe if he was a little bit more, less upbeat, from the get-go, it would have been kind of a different viewpoint on the character to begin with.
I think if the Gungans in general were not made to be so clown-like and not so insulting to someone's intelligence, probably would have gone over better.
The rest of the Gungans were bearable, but like Jar Jar was just kind of like that.
Boss Nass. Come on. You're better than that.
I could totally take that to a whole different point, but
hey,
moving
staying on target is the last segment of this show. We're barreling through this episode, and it's just not a whole lot going on this week, but enough to touch upon it. Of course, you got to have an episode, but I guess this week what I'm kind of interested in is, I have it down here in my notes too, is Phil Zotzak is, I believe I'm saying his last name right. He's the author of the Art of Star Wars books, and I want to definitely say thanks to StarWarsNewsNet.com for doing this story. But yeah, just kind of interesting to talk about the process of how he writes those books, and what goes into them, and say what you say about any of the movies, but I love all that conceptual art and the art that goes into storyboarding those movies. So really enjoy that, and go check out StarWarsNewsNet.com. They're my number one source of Star Wars news. They're this show's number one source of news. They provide half the stories at least that we cover. So go check them out. Give that story some love. Give that website some love. What's on your targeting system this week?
Well, I mean, this weekend, I'm off Saturday. Obviously, I'm off every Sunday, so I was kind of hoping for some nice weather, because there's a little bit of work I need to do on some cosplay stuff. I know. I feel like David's going to kill me here.
I just would like you to find something else that's intriguing to you. Because, like, cosplay is just like a default.
Well, that's the thing is, unfortunately, I don't think the weather's going to agree with me, so I think I'm probably going to start THRAWN at some point.
There's a good
There we go.
Target.
You see, there we are.
That's a good one.
I was getting there. You
Good
gotta
job.
give me a moment.
I know, but sometimes you just take too long to get to that point, man. We got to get you right in there.
I know. I'm just excited. I want to get. It's a blaster pistol. I have teased it in the past on my own personal Twitter, but like I'm wanting to get it done because it's a really cool blaster pistol, and I need the weather.
Once you get it done, you'll bring it in. We'll display it. We'll all praise the blaster, and then you'll come in with more better sing on targets, and that's okay.
I mean, if I really wanted to be a jerk, because I know David Gilbert, isn't going to watch this part, we're gonna complete lightsabers tomorrow.
Oh, are you and I gonna build our hilts? Well, David, sometimes it sucks to suck. That's really funny.
That'd
He's
be really
so mad.
Yeah, it'd be really funny. If we
Good
could
thing
do
he doesn't
that.
get cell service up at the scout camp. Well, that's going to do it for episode 32. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Beyond the Blast Doors. And once again, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. You can find all the links right there on our website. That's where you need to check in every Monday morning. Every Monday morning, we have new episodes by 8 a.m. Central Time. That's right, Central Time, because we're not a coastal podcast. We are right here in the Well, I say right here in the Midwest. You might not be in the Midwest.
If an earthquake ever happens, it could split us. I mean, we could end up being a coastal podcast.
It's all besides the point. We're just glad that you're here with us to have a Star Wars conversation. We'll see you soon. If you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. You can watch other videos just like this one right now by checking out these videos on your screen. And by the way, thanks for checking out Beyond the Blast Doors.